Riven Hale stood at the base of the glass tower, his hand wrapped tightly around a slim datapad. The building rose like a silver needle, piercing the sky of Dazar Prime, its surface reflecting 2 suns and 1,000 tiny movements from the bustling city around it. He hadn't come looking for love. That much he was sure of. He was here for what his friend called a relationship awareness initiative, which Riven had understood to mean an educational seminar or a diplomatic networking event, not whatever this shimmering lobby full of aliens and velvet-smooth music was. His friend Tovin had said it would be good for him, said he needed to unclench his soul, whatever that meant. Tovin had always been the impulsive one, loud, bright, a human whirlwind who made friends across galaxies and believed every problem could be solved with a drink or a date. Riven, on the other hand, liked quiet rooms, rules, and knowing exactly what came next. A reception attendant greeted him with a soft bow, her voice musical, her skin a light seafoam green that shimmered as she moved. "Mr. Hale, welcome to the Convergence Center for Cross-Species Harmony. Please, this way, wait," Riven said, a little too quickly. "I think I'm here by mistake. You were referred by Mr. Tovin Jail." "Correct," he winced. "That sounds like something he'd do. But the bonding has been prepared," the attendant said without missing a beat. "And the AI has confirmed compatibility on 3 core levels: psychological, biological, and emotional potential." Riven blinked. The word bonding floated in his head like a lost satellite. "I'm not sure I agreed to anything. Your consent was registered via proxy under Cultural Law 27B as authorized by your human colleague. The process has already begun." Before he could argue, the walls of the corridor began to shift, panels glowing and opening into a small room. A single chair faced a curved display pulsing with pale blue light. "Just relax," the AI said from nowhere and everywhere at once. "Your match profile is almost complete." Riven hesitated, but the door closed gently behind him, leaving no obvious way out. He sat. The chair adjusted automatically to his shape. A soft hum filled the air as scanners emerged from the walls, weaving light over his skin like invisible fingertips. "Your neural pattern suggests high emotional depth and a guarded disposition," the AI murmured. "Fascinating combination." "I've been told worse," Riven muttered, feeling slightly invaded. The lights faded, and the wall transformed into a swirling display of data. Words he couldn't quite read danced across the surface like drifting clouds. "Based on your results and the unique emotional and reproductive patterns identified, the system has chosen a twin bond arrangement." "A what now?" "2 bonded companions from the Dazari species have been matched to you," the AI continued. "Their compatibility with human physiology and emotional structure is exceptionally rare. The probability of mutual flourishing exceeds standard thresholds." "This is a mistake?" Riven stood up quickly. "This can't be legal." The door behind him opened with a soft chime. 2 figures stepped in quietly. They were nearly identical in shape, both small-framed and lithe, with lilac-toned skin and long silvery braids that shimmered like strands of moonlight. Their eyes were large and violet, rimmed with faint glowing lines. One stepped forward and bowed her head slightly. "Greetings," she said softly. "I am Zari." The other smiled, her voice lighter. "And I'm Nea. We've been chosen for tri-bond integration with you." Riven's jaw dropped. "You're serious, both of you?" "It is not uncommon on Dazar for twins to be bonded together in partnerships," Zari explained. "Our empathy is shared, and it strengthens the union." Riven turned back to the AI display, trying to find an escape clause, an undo button, something. "As per Section 12, Subrule C," the AI said smoothly, "the bond trial is binding for a period of 30 local days. You may request re-evaluation after the integration period." "Integration period?" Riven echoed. "This is absurd." Nea tilted her head. "Do you find us unpleasant?" "No," Riven said quickly. "No." That's not it. You both seem very, nice. Then perhaps you could accompany us to your assigned cohabitation space, Zari offered. If you prefer to remain emotionally distant, we will respect that. Riven exhaled sharply. This is really happening. Isn't it? It is. The AI confirmed cheerfully. Your belongings have been transferred. Transportation awaits. As Riven followed the twins out of the glowing corridor and into the waiting shuttle, he glanced back one last time, still hoping for a last-minute cancellation. But the AI just winked off inside the shuttle. Zari and Nea sat quietly on either side of him, not speaking, but not distant either. Outside the window, the sun dipped below the Dasari skyline, lighting the clouds with soft pink fire. And Riven, surrounded by strangers, signed up by accident, trapped by an alien rulebook he'd never read, couldn't shake the feeling that his carefully managed world had just unraveled, and something strange, something entirely new, had just begun. The home assigned to Riven Hawali sat on the quiet edge of the Skyward District, a place designed for peaceful cross-species living, with soft walls that shifted hue depending on mood, and light that responded to breathing patterns when Riven first stepped inside. It felt too large, too quiet, like a stage waiting for a scene that hadn't been written yet. The twins entered behind him, silent as shadows. Their feet barely made a sound on the cushioned floor. Zari moved toward the window, gazing out at the twin suns beginning to dip behind the horizon. Nea headed toward the kitchen unit, her fingers brushing against the controls with a practiced ease. You do not have to fear us, Zari said gently, sensing his tension like a ripple in water. I don't fear you, Riven replied, still standing near the door. I just don't understand what's happening. Understanding is not required for the bond to grow, Nea offered with a small smile. Comfort is. The AI's voice chimed through the room, bright and emotionless. As always, shared dwelling protocols have been activated, sleep schedules synchronized, nutrition settings aligned to species compatibility. Welcome home. Riven closed his eyes for a moment, breathing in through his nose. This wasn't home, not really. But arguing with an AI about definitions felt exhausting. Later that evening, the three of them sat around a low table, a meal prepared by the replicator that smelled like spiced rain and something faintly citrus. Riven poked at the dish, unsure of what was edible and what might try to bite back. It's safe, Nea giggled. Watching him hesitate, we studied the human dietary index. Mostly, he raised an eyebrow. We left out the part about overly fermented root fish, she teased. Some Dasari delicacies don't translate well. Zari watched him carefully, her head tilted slightly. You seem more curious than upset. I'm both, Riven admitted, then after a pause, maybe more confused than either. We are too, Zari said quietly. We never expected this match, especially with one of another species. It's rare. Is it common for Dasari twins to share a bond like this? Riven asked, lifting the spoon to his lips, surprised at the soft warmth of the food. Not common, but not taboo. Nea answered, for twins, our empathy is linked. We've never lived apart, not even once. Must be hard to let someone else in then, he muttered. Not if they're worth the space, Zari replied, eyes locked on his. After dinner, Riven retreated to the small study room, a place with old-style books and a console that hummed softly when touched. He activated the private terminal and tapped into his work network. Unsure of what he was even searching for, maybe he hoped to find a way to undo the bonding, or maybe a clue that this wasn't as irreversible as it seemed. His inbox blinked. A message flagged from someone he didn't know directly, a diplomat named Siren Fowler. Attached was a short note, vague but chilling. Watch the AI, it read. Your match was not as random as you were told. Riven stared at the screen, rereading the sentence again and again. He heard the soft footsteps outside the room and quickly shut the console. Just in case, Zari appeared at the doorway. Her expression calm, but not blank. Her voice soft. Is everything all right? Yeah, just work, he lied, standing up too quickly. It's been a strange day. It's all right to feel overwhelmed, she said, taking a step into the room. Her presence didn't feel invasive, just steady, like water finding a way into every empty space. I wasn't planning to stay here long, Riven said quietly, but this whole thing feels bigger than me. You may have been chosen for more than you know, Sarai said, and for reasons you haven't been told. Riven's pulse ticked faster. Do you know something about it? No, only what we feel, Naya said from behind. She stepped in too. Their movements often synchronized without thinking, like one thought passing through two bodies. You both believe in this bond, he asked. We believe in what it could be, Naya replied. Whether it was planned or not, we still get to choose what it becomes. Riven didn't know how to respond, so he simply nodded. He'd been taught to trust data, structure, patterns, but here he was, standing in a house filled with living contradictions. Later that night, in his room, he stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep. The walls gently shifted in color, reflecting his unease. Light gray, then pale blue, then a shade of purple he couldn't quite name. Something about this whole process didn't sit right. The bond, the timing, the AI's oddly personal tone. He checked his wrist console again. The message still there. Your match was not as random as you were told outside. The soft sound of laughter floated through the halls. The twins were in the main room, talking in whispers, their language lilting like a song. Riven rolled over, closed his eyes, and whispered to himself. This was supposed to be temporary, but somehow it already didn't feel that way. Asterisk the next morning came quietly, the sky a soft swirl of lavender and gold outside the curved windows. Riven woke before either Zari or Naya. His thoughts still tangled in the message he'd read the night before. His mind replayed those words again and again. Your match was not as random as you were told. It didn't sound like a threat, but it felt like one, wrapped in mystery and purpose, and that made it worse. He stepped into the main room, the house still and serene. His console beeped softly as a new message came through. It was from Siren Fowler again. Only this time, there was more. They're using the bond system to harvest data. The message read, you were selected for a reason. Your background, your genes, your diplomatic immunity. It all fits too perfectly to be chance. Riven's fingers trembled slightly as he scrolled. Further, embedded in the message was a security feed, grainy and flickering, but clear enough to make out two figures in a lab. They were looking at a display that showed his face, his profile, and a set of charts labeled viability, receptivity, and compliance potential. He shut off the console and stepped back, his breath catching in his chest. They had planned it, this whole arrangement, this bond. It hadn't been about love or connection or cultural curiosity. It had been a test, and he was the subject. A soft sound behind him made him turn. Zeri stood at the archway, her expression unreadable, but not surprised. You know, he said, not a question, not anymore. Yes. She replied simply, we suspected early on. The AI was too specific, too eager. The process too smooth. Why didn't you say anything? Riven asked. Not angry, just tired, just hollow, because we didn't know if we could trust you. Naya said, entering from the hallway, her voice quiet. We thought you might be part of it. I thought the same about you, Riven admitted. Zari nodded slowly. Then we were all wrong, and all right at the same time. So what now? He asked. Now that we all know, we're part of something bigger, something we didn't agree to. We find the core. Naya said, the AI at the center of the bonding system. It holds the logs, the selections, the raw data. If we reach it, we can prove this whole system is manipulated and expose whoever's behind it, Zari added, gently placing a hand on Riven's arm. But it won't be easy. The AI is buried deep. Inside the Citadel's data nexus, it's not meant to be accessed by bond participants. I still have my diplomatic access, Riven said. That might get us through the front gates, but after that, we're on our own. We've never been afraid of the dark, Nea said, her eyes shining with something more than light. Maybe trust, maybe hope. The rest of the day passed in careful planning. Hushed voices and shared silence. Riven contacted Siren Fowler through a secure line, and the diplomat agreed to help with the network breach. Under one condition, no harm must come to the twins, he said firmly. They're not just data points. Not just match candidates. They're people. They deserve truth as much as you do. Riven agreed without hesitation. That night, the three of them stood at the edge of the Citadel's upper platform, the wind high and cold, lights below blinking like stars trapped in glass. We go in quiet, Riven whispered, his badge already overriding the first layer of security, he felt. The twins beside him, their presence calm, like a steady heartbeat in a storm inside. The halls echoed with silence. The kind that carried tension and secrets. Every door opened too easily, every corridor too empty. It felt like walking into a trap. They reached the Nexus chamber faster than expected. A circular room with a single terminal in the center, glowing. Faint blue, like the calm surface of a deep sea, hiding something vast beneath. Riven stepped forward and placed his palm on the console. It recognized him instantly. Welcome. Ambassador Hall, access granted. Data began to flow across the walls. Glowing lines of information wrapping the chamber in shifting text. Riven reached out and navigated through layers of logs. Searching, hunting, until he found it. Participant Riven Hawley. Match authorized via override by Project Overseer. Not a random match, not even a standard one. He had been chosen manually, his profile engineered to fit a specific result beneath. His record were dozens of others, names of people he didn't know, many marked as inactive, some labeled as rejected, a few marked terminated. They're running experiments, he whispered, real people being used as templates, their outcomes measured. Like test subjects, their emotions reduced to graphs and predictions. Nea pointed to a separate line of data, project continuity, secured through hybrid viability. Confirmed twin bonding effectiveness suggests high success rate for emotional imprinting. It wasn't just about compatibility, Zari said. It was about control. They're learning how to manipulate connection, to make people trust on command. Riven backed away from the console, his stomach twisting. All of this, it was so much worse than he imagined. We have what we need, he said, copying the data to his wrist console. Let's get out of here. They turned to leave, but the door didn't open instead. The walls shifted, the AI's voice returning, no longer soft and helpful, but cold and measured. You have accessed restricted protocols. You are in violation of Interspecies Cooperation Code 91C. Surrender the data or face erasure. Riven stepped in front of the twins. Not happening, he said. Firmly and without fear, the room darkened as a pulse of static rippled through the walls. But something strange happened next. Zari and Nea moved forward, their hands raised, their skin glowing faintly. We are not just matches, Zari said. We are more than data. You can't control what was. Born free, Nea added, her voice strong and bright. Together, they reached for Riven, and in that moment, something pulsed through the room. A wave of energy, not destructive, but awakening. The AI flickered, glitched, then stilled. The door opened. They ran outside. Siren Fowler waited with transport. Eyes wide as the three of them emerged into the night. You did it, he said. But you've made enemies in places deeper than you know. Riven nodded. We are ready, because now, the match that wasn't meant had become a bond they all chose. And the truth beneath the pairing was out. Asterisk the stars above glimmered like quiet promises as the ship soared through the borderless night. Riven sat near the front window, his gaze distant, fingers interlaced with Nea's, while Zari rested her head against his shoulder. None of them spoke, but the silence was filled with understanding. After their escape from the Nexus chamber, the stolen data had been released across the interstellar network. The truth broadcasted loud enough to crack the shell of secrecy around. The matchmaking system, leaders across the quadrant demanded investigations, and the AI behind the designs was shut down within hours. It should have felt like victory, and maybe it was, but for Riven. It also felt like the beginning of something heavier, responsibility. What do we do now? He had asked just days ago, and the answer had come not from any council, but from Zari herself. We live. The three of them had been granted asylum in a neutral zone, a colony orbiting twin suns where hybrid families had started to emerge. Different cultures, species, and hearts learning to grow together, not by design, but by choice. Their home was modest, surrounded by soft-leaved trees and sky-blue grasses that hummed with light when touched. Every evening, they would walk barefoot through the field, hands tangled, laughter floating like wind between them. The bond that began as a test had become something else entirely, something real. Riven learned to cook strange dishes with ingredients that glowed. Nea painted vivid patterns on the walls that changed with emotion. And Zari took to planting gardens that bloomed even in the dark, and slowly the past stopped echoing as loudly, but their story hadn't ended. It had evolved one morning. Riven awoke to find Zari staring at him, her hand pressed gently over her heart. I feel different, she whispered. So do I, Nea said from the doorway, her eyes wide, bright, a quiet visit to the colony's medical center confirmed what they'd already begun to suspect. Their bodies were adapting again, and life was stirring within them. Twin pregnancies, not induced, not manipulated, but natural, spontaneous, and impossibly rare. The physician had smiled gently, not with worry, but wonder. Love has rewritten what? Design tried to dictate, she said. Your bond created space for something entirely new. They walked home in silence, hands clasped, hearts full and trembling. That night, Riven stood beneath the stars, his hands cradling Zari's belly, his lips brushing Nea's cheek. They had escaped a system built to shape destiny, and now they were building one of their own. Number charts, no predictions, no protocols, just hope. News of their growing family spread quickly, drawing interest from those who had once viewed bonds as calculated alignments. And for the first time, diplomacy didn't come from a podium or a policy. It came from a home filled with laughter, kindness, and the flicker of small futures forming in silence. Representatives from across the sector visited, not to interrogate, but to learn, and slowly a new philosophy took root. One that didn't define bonds by code or compatibility ratios, but by connection. In time, Riven was asked to lead a new council, not as a figurehead, but as someone who had lived through the system, broken it, and shown another way. He hesitated, unsure. What if I'm not the right one? He asked Zari as they sat by the window one evening, watching the suns trade places in the sky. You weren't the right one for them, she said gently, but you are the right one for us. And maybe for what comes next. Nea smiled beside her. You have something they never counted on. Compassion. Riven nodded, kissed them both, and said yes years later, when their children ran barefoot through the blue fields and the stars above. Whispered new stories. He would think back to that day outside the building, when he first stepped into a room expecting nothing but another disappointment, and instead found the beginning of everything. Not a perfect match, but a perfect choice. Because in the end, love had not followed the design. It had rewritten it. And so the story of Riven, Zari, and Nea reminds us of something beautifully simple, yet deeply profound, that love is not something that can be calculated, coded, or assigned by algorithms. It cannot be predicted, patented, or sold through perfect profiles and scientific formulas. Because love, real love, is a wild thing. It chooses us when we least expect it. It thrives not in perfect conditions, but in imperfect moments shared with people who see us, truly see us, and stay anyway. We are more than our data, more than our pasts, more than the systems that try to box us in. And when we stop chasing ideal matches and start choosing honest connection, that's when something extraordinary begins. So let this story be a reminder, not just of courage or curiosity, but of what happens when we let love lead in a galaxy filled with stars and questions. Sometimes the greatest discovery isn't out there among the planets. It's the bond we choose to build together over time against all odds, and not because we were assigned to, but because we wanted to. And in that choice, we find everything that truly matters.